Welcome to Fearlyss and Unfiltered. I'm your host, Alyssa, and today's conversation is one I know so many people are craving because it's not about success that looks good on the outside and more about success that actually feels good to you inside. Today, I'm sitting down with Priya Patel, host of the podcast named I Wished I Knew That Early. Essence. We're talking about what it really looks like to build a personal brand and business while staying connected to your joy, your truth, and your humanity. So Priya, thank you for being here with us today.
And thanks for having me on, Alyssa. I'm excited for this conversation.
Me too. And I'm so excited to hear about your journey leading up to what you do now, because I think any coach has a clear moment when they realize that they want to make a change and they want to help other people do the same thing. So can you think back to when you started actively thinking about inner work and what it meant to you at the time?
So when I look at that journey, I was trying to go back to that moment. I kind of stumbled into it, if I'm being honest. I think there were little moments that led me to it. I mean, a job layoff was one of them, but then I was always curious in the personal development space, and that sort of led me to conversations with different people and how my podcast started. I came across a conversation with a coach and she was very much involved with doing the subconscious work. And that sort of piqued my curiosity in terms of another layer of doing the work. So then I kind of went down that rabbit hole very slowly, because I think when you first come across it, it's very scary to avoid.
I think that makes sense. I think that's how the inner work journey typically starts for many of us. And I think the majority of the people who listen to this podcast can align with the idea of embodiment and breath work and all of that. But for those who might not be familiar, where did you start? Like, what was the tool that you started with?
So for me, it was a lot of, I'm going to strip it back actually. It was very simple. It was awareness. Literally just understanding what thoughts are running my show, what's happening in my mind when certain moments happen. And when I started doing that, I started journaling and I was noticing a pattern in terms of the thoughts that I was thinking. And then I was introduced to breath work, or this deep, it's not like normal breath work. It's like a deeper breath work. I don't know what it's called, but that's when I was introduced to that. And early in my journey, I thought it was like this one-off moment where I'll do a breathwork session and then boom, I'm healed. Like I don't have to deal with anything again. But I feel like the tools were more like there to clear the cobwebs so then I could get even more awareness and clarity. So it started simple with just what's the thought in my head.
Yeah, it's amazing how once you are aware of something and you acknowledge the thought, you almost can't unsee it or unknow it. So then you have to figure out what to do with that thought moving forward.
It's so confronting and uncomfortable.
It is. It'll really put you in your place very quickly. As you started to experience that and go down the path, and like you said, just awareness and breath work, when did you realize that this was something that you wanted to shift into as far as your career?
So I think it deepened when I started doing coaching certification. So even with coaching, it wasn't something I saw for myself, never saw myself as a coach, but somehow breadcrumbs were laying themselves out in front of me, and it led to a couple of coaching certifications. And doing a certification is not a cute moment where you just study and you're certified to help people. You go through your own transformation journey as well. And that was something I didn't see coming. And it went deep and fast with the inner work, especially one of the certifications I did. But then on the other side of it, it was just like a different version of myself that I got to experience. And everything I say, I'm still on the journey. I'm not on the other side. I'm still very much in it. And when I went through my certification, got to see a different side of myself, that's when I was like, ooh, okay, this is something I want to help people with, because I didn't have this awareness or these tools myself before I went into the certification. So then I was very deeply connected to wanting to help people with it now that I have them.
Yeah, that's a really cool thought to think that you're going through it as you're getting the certification. It's like that saying where you only need to be, what is it, a couple steps ahead of somebody to help them. And I feel like people who are just a couple steps ahead of us make the best coaches. So it's awesome that you're utilizing, your journey and your knowledge to now help other people. But I'm curious what it looks like for you as you're going through it, as you became more aware and you started deepening your practices. How did that shift your day to day, not only in how you show up in business, but how you show up with friends and family?
It's been very messy. Even being on a different side of it, it still feels messy, and I'm still in the part where I'm figuring things out with entrepreneurship and life. So in both areas, I think you mentioned it, like once you have the awareness, it's like no going back. So the way I show up in different spaces, if I notice something is off or different in how I'm showing up, like it's confronting. Like I have to deal with it. It's not gonna run away or fizzle away. Like I have that.
So, in your one on one work, when your clients are coming to you, what is the thing that you notice that people are feeling on the inside, even if externally they look successful?
So on the part on sort of coaching people through realigning to a version of success that they want to pursue, that's a deeper refinement that's come more recently. But in terms of what goes on in the back end, which I've worked with other clients on, is the inner work and getting clarity there. And I think what happens in that space, but also in the success spaces, they feel one way based on perceptions of what they think is good and what they're supposed to do. But then when they look deeper, they find like a misalignment there in terms of how they're showing up, the messaging that they're sharing, or also things that are keeping them stuck. So I think a common thing there is like things look one way on the outside, but they're very different on the inside. And it's when we go inside that things start to shift.
It's very relatable. If there's someone listening to this who that kind of pulled their strings a little bit and they're like, yeah, I think I might be facing a little bit of that myself. Besides calling you and booking a session, what's one quick thing that they can do to tune in and face that part of themselves?
I think the biggest thing I would say is awareness is a good place to start. That was how I started on this journey. And just being curious with what thoughts come up for you, but also where the thoughts are coming from. Because when I look at thoughts that are driving my decisions or even how I define success, like it was very much things that I picked up from my external world, from society, from the community that I grew up in. Like you need a good job, you have to have this title, you have to climb the corporate ladder, you have to get married at this age, you have to have these many kids, and that's when you're going to be successful. And I think when you start to question the thoughts that come up, you'll get to see what's yours and what isn't yours. So I think just having gentle curiosity is like a great place to start. It's easy, it's free, it's you and your thoughts. Like no one else is there to hear it. And I think that gives you like complete freedom to just be really honest with yourself.
Love that breakdown. And the reason I asked that question, which you answered perfectly, so thank you, is because I was thinking of my own personal development journey where in the beginning you know there's something, right? And you just don't know where to start or you're not willing to listen to the thought or you're not able to get quiet enough to even have that awareness. So I'm thinking of that person who, everything you're saying is making sense to them and awareness just feels like a trigger word. Like, okay, how do I become aware? And you answered that very very effectively. So once they do listen to that thought and they think that they realize whether it's their own internal belief or something that the world just imposed on them, what next? What do you do with those thoughts? Do you just track them or how do you take them once you have the awareness and then make a change?
That's a really good question. And I think that's somewhere I got stuck initially when I was doing my inner work, where I was like, cool, I know the story and I'm just going to tell myself a different story one time and everything's going to shift. And the thing is, it's not going to change in one moment. It's like repeated over time. And there's this quote I go back to often, which is from James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. And he talks about how, like, I'm butchering the quote, but the premise of it is it's not change doesn't happen in one moment. It's constantly making a vote for the type of person that you want to be. So once you've identified the thought that you want to change, identify or pick a new story you want to tell yourself, and then start to build the evidence to install the new story. And that evidence building happens through taking action, showing yourself that you are someone who lives by this new story. And when I talk about stories, they are stories, but they're essentially referring to like beliefs that we carry around. But I call them stories because I don't think they're truths. They're things that we can shift. So yeah.
That's a great metaphor or a way to put words to it. Because I have been telling myself in my personal life and my business life a lot of stories lately. And to your point, I've become aware of them and I'm trying to shift the mindset from like, this is a story about me and who I am to this is a belief and this is how I confront it. And with that being said, I think this is a good way to transition to personal branding because that is the work I do is personal branding and visibility. And we talk about that all the time in the entrepreneur space. I think visibility is like the word of 2026, it seems. But I know that for people who are actively doing the work, that can feel really scary when you're going through this transition to figure out, how do I show up in the world? So for you, from your personal experience, did you shift how you show up to your clients on social media, so on and so forth, as you started to go down this path? And do you have any advice on the opposite end of that for people who are doing this work and still wanting to show up?
I always smile when I hear the word visibility because I feel it's been my biggest hurdle that I've had to climb because I've been someone who, when I stepped into coaching, stepped into entrepreneurship, visibility is a big part of it. You have to show up either with your clients online, as you market your product, or even out, however you show up, you have to show up. And I think I had so many stories that diminished my self worth or sense of belief in myself to be a coach, to be an entrepreneur. And when I look at visibility, if I didn't have the foundations of self belief or self worth, it was going to shake how I showed up. And not only from a confidence perspective, but from an authenticity perspective. I mean, we're in a community or mastermind together with Paras women and the upgrade call, and visibility was one of the topics that came up last year. And I shared about how I had this fear about my unhinged personality diminishing my authority as a coach. So I had this story in my head on how coaches are supposed to show up. How I saw myself was very different to that. And I wasn't able to fit myself in that mold in my head. But when I got to understand visibility a lot more, and this happened as part of the beta program of the upgrade. So the upgrade before the upgrade. And one of the conversations we had there on visibility was understanding what visibility really is. And when I understood that, I started to make more intentional choices to shift how I showed up. So visibility isn't just about being seen, like putting yourself out there on camera, like world see me, but it's about being seen authentically as you. When I stepped in, coming back to the coaching piece, when I was showing up on social media, I struggled with visibility because I was detaching my authenticity from how I was showing up. This year, this was a change I hadn't made until very recently. So this year moving forward, I'm choosing to be very intentional with how I show up and making sure like my Priya personality is like front and center. Cause I think that's the essence of a personal brand is the person. And I think I was missing that part. So yeah, visibility has been hard, but when I've understood it a bit differently, it's shifting how I'm choosing to show up moving forward.
Yeah, I love that. I remember you mentioning wanting to bring your unhinged self. I remember that conversation because I was thinking that yes, do it. That's what performs the best on social media. That's what we all love so much. But to your point, a lot of the things that I see with my clients or is that they haven't done the inner work yet. So they
Mm,
don't know how they want to show up. So they can run a business and they can bring me like all of their flyers and send me their website. And as the person who's helping them build their personal brand, I'm like, okay, this is great, but I can't do anything. I can't start here. Who are you as a person? Who do you want to be seen as? And I think that goes very much into the visibility piece. And I just have to tell you, I can't wait to see your unhinged socials because first of all, our this podcast is called I live for the unfiltered side, but I also want to tell you, I once hired a coach because of the fact that she was cursing in her social media content. And it wasn't so much like, okay, let me rephrase. It wasn't so much that she was cursing, right? But she dropped an F bomb in a LinkedIn status. And I was like, I love that this woman is just showing up and she's not paring it down and she doesn't care. And that's who she is as a coach. And we now have a wonderful friendship with this woman. And I can say wholeheartedly that the way she shows up online is the way she shows up in person. And it's why she has built such a successful coaching container. So I'm really excited to see that version of you.
I
Um,
appreciate you sharing that.
and
Thank
it
you,
works.
Alyssa.
It works really well. Yeah, because we all, especially coming from a corporate background, which I believe you said you came from corporate, right? Before you started coaching. Yeah. We have these like rules and ideas of how you're supposed to show up. And even when you start running your own business, there's almost like that internal dialogue of like, I can do whatever I want now,
Mhm.
but will people accept me if I do whatever I want? And doing whatever you want on social media there are very many different variations of that.
It's the
Like
Wild
in
West
my
out
mind,
there.
simply cursing. Yeah. Yeah, like if I can see you for who you are and I like you for that, then that goes so far in business and friendship. So for a business owner who is in the process of becoming aligned, they're choosing to become more aware, they're doing the work, what is it that you would want them to hear right now to keep pushing forward?
And that's a really good question. And the thing that came to mind immediately is a quote that I came across like a couple of weeks ago, or was reminded of a couple of weeks ago. And it was the quote by Steve Jobs that our time on earth is so limited, so don't spend it living someone else's life. And I think that really struck a chord with me.
Yeah, that's so powerful, truly. So, what's next for you? How can someone work with you if they're listening to this conversation and they're aligned and they're ready? What does that look like?
So the focus or the part of coaching I enjoy in this season is like one-to-one coaching. So yeah, if people are interested, they can just reach out, and if however we align, we can go from there.
Perfect. I'll link your website and your socials and all of that in the show notes so that people can find you and connect with you. But before we wrap up, I have to ask you because this is the starting question that I visit with all of my clients because of what I said earlier. I can't build a brand without knowing who the person is, both how they see themselves and how they want to be seen. So, what are 3 words you would use to describe yourself?
Okay. I would say funny. Like I think I'm the funniest person on earth, but I think funny would be one. I would say curious is another one. And the third one felt uncomfortable at first when I thought about it, but it feels like it aligns in this season, and that's creative.
I love that. I will say being funny and curious often leads to the most creativity. So I love that that was your
Whoa,
final like anchor word. That's really exciting.
that's so cool. I mean, one day my comedic career will launch, Alyssa, and then we might have a different conversation then. But until then, that's what we're at.
Yes. Come back for part 2 and tell me all of your comedic jokes. We need some comedic relief these days.
We need it, especially with the inner work, which we're both doing right now. So yeah, I'm excited.
Right now. Yeah, for sure. Well, is there anything else that you would want the audience to take away before we go?
No, I think I'd just say if anything in this podcast episode stood out to you about doing the inner work or sparked any curiosity, I think it's to like just be kind to yourself through the process and not judge what it looks like for you because you're on your own unique journey.
It's fantastic advice. Thank you. And thank you for being here today. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you for having me on, Alyssa.
Of course. Thank you all for listening to Fearless and Unfiltered. We'll see you next time.